Hey guys, this is Pablo from D-Mar Shoe Repair. It's been a while since my last video, but I'm happy to be back at it. And today I'm going to take you along the journey of recrafting this pair of Red Wing 875 Moc Toes in oro leather. What we're going to do is remove the wedge outsole from the factory and replace it with a Vibram 1136 Roca outsole. The reason the customer wants to do this conversion is because this sole is very comfortable but not very good for outdoor use. It's slippery and does not perform well on hikes, trails, or slippery conditions. So let's get this boot apart and start the process. Alrighty, so just got the outsole and the midsole off of the boot. Just applied a little bit of heat with my heat gun and that activated the glue. So now we're going to remove the cork and we're going to pick all the welt stitches. I'm going to add a shank, steel shank, because when you go from a wedge sole to a heeled sole, you need to add some arch support, especially if someone's going to be walking on ladders, and recork it. And then we're going to install these new Vibram midsoles. We're going to go from a white midsole to a black midsole, just so it ties in better with the new Vibram sole we're going to put on. So let's get these stitches picked. Let's get this cork removed. We'll install our shanks, recork it, and go from there. All right, so it's very important to remove all of the cork from the filling here, because if you leave any of the old cork and you put new cork on, you're going to get a lump, and the customer is going to find that very uncomfortable. So just to finish this cork out, I'm going to put it onto my machine with my wire wheel brush just to clean it all out. Alright, so next step is going to be removing the welt stitches. A very, very important step in the recrafting process, because we don't want to be stitching over the original thread. It's going to damage the welt, and it's what we call a poor job in this industry when you don't remove the stitches. Sometimes the stitches come out very easily. Sometimes they can be a pain in the butt. In this case, the stitch gods are shining down on me, coming out fairly easily. And this welt is in very, very good shape. Red Wing did a very good job finishing the boot. Left a lot of welt and a lot of meat for me to put a new sole and re-stitch it. Some cases we change the welt, some cases we just reuse it. And this boot's not very old either, it's less than a year old. Just not practical for kind of all season wear. That's why we're doing this upgrade for the customer. Alright, so we got all the stitches picked out from the welt. We have the old cork removed, and now I'm going to glue in a steel shank, because when this customer walks and presses down, there's no support here. His arch of his foot's going to just collapse, so that's not good. So we need to put that shank in for added support. All right. Alright, so we're going to glue this steel shank in now, and on our boot rebuilds we only use heavy-duty steel 3-ribbed shanks that come pre-taped by the factory, and this taping is going to allow the shank to adhere better to the footbed, and B, it's going to help decrease the chance of any squeak happening, because sometimes when a shank gets loose in a boot or a shoe, it can cause some squeaking. So that's why we only use a high quality 3-ribbed taped shank. So we'll go ahead and insert that now. Alright, so we got our heavy duty shank installed. Now what we're going to do is insert the cork in this little filler spot, the cavity, so be it. So what you have is the leather upper of the shoe goes underneath that welt to here, and this gemming piece is glued to the footbed, and that has a little lip. So the gemming lip, the leather upper, and the welt, they're stitched at that spot, and that creates just like a 1/4 inch gap or cavity. So you can't just glue on a sole, because you're going to get a a concave, an indent, and obviously that's not going to be functional. So what most boot and shoe manufacturers use to solve that problem is cork filler. Cork is a natural product. It's moldable, so when you walk in this boot, your foot's going to mold the footbed, and now it has another layer to mold, which is the cork. It wears very well, breathable, and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and glue in our cork filler. Alright, so we have our cork filled in. And we've got a nice level flush surface. So now we can start to apply our glue to the boot and our glue to the rubber midsole. Before we glue rubber, we want to give it a little clean, get all the dirt and oil or whatever might be on it. So I'm using what's called a thinner. Very, very common product that cobblers use. It loosens glue, it cleans rubber, cleans stains off rubber and leather as well. Lots of purposes for it. And just so I don't over glue the midsole, I'm going to just kind of mark it off and trim off the excess. Because glue nowadays ain't that cheap, especially when you use the good stuff. I'm using Renya glues from Germany. Col de Cologne is the name of mine. It's a grafted neoprene glue, super good. So you want to spread that glue evenly. Make sure you're getting the welt because that's where it's going to stick to. And you don't want that opening up on the customer at all, ever. Throw a coat on the rubber midsole. Make sure that's evenly applied. Not too thick, not too thin. Let that dry, and then we'll stick them together. All right, so we have our new rubber midsole glued onto the boot, and because this is a Goodyear welted boot, we have to what's called outsole stitch the welt to the sole, and we're going to use our outsole stitcher right here to achieve that. And the goal is to hit all the original stitch holes. That way you're not damaging the welt, and aesthetically it's the most pleasing. So let's give this a run. Pretty darn good. All right, so we got our midsole stitched. Just wiped it down with some thinner. Same thing with the sole. And we're going to now glue, press it, and let the glue cure. And then we'll finish the trimming and sanding, and then give the leather a good conditioning, and then we're all done with this project. right, so we are almost near completion on this project. I went ahead and sanded the edges of the soles, made everything nice and flush, burnished the leather and the edges, put a little bit of color to blend in with the rest of the boot. Now really all that's left to do is give the boot a conditioning and then we're done. So what I'm going to use on this Oro leather is Saphir's oiled leather cream. This cream is for obviously oiled leathers, which what this is. It's going to allow the leather to keep its natural looks. It's not going to darken it. It's not going to add any sort of sheen. It's just going to nourish, condition, and protect it, which is all that we're looking to do. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this with my applicator brush. And just make sure I get the entire boot evenly. This stuff smells so good too. It's a little squirt and rub. I like to work the welt as well. Make sure that's moist and conditioned and won't crack during flexing at all and during the life cycle of the boot. And this is a neutral cream, so there's no pigment to it, so it's not gonna, darken your white threads or anything, so it's safe to go on the whole boot. So we'll let that dry for maybe 10-15 minutes, give it a good buffing, pop the laces back in, and then we're done. All right, and that wraps it up for this project. We converted these Red Wing Moc Toe 875s from a boring old little wedge sole to a very, very fun lug sole, the 1136 from Vibram. Added a steel shank, new cork filler, Vibram rubber midsoles, and then the 1136 outsole. Gave them a nice condition and shine, and they are now ready for action.